everyone. Welcome to Switchblade Sisters Social Club, the true crime podcast where two friends exploit their worst fears for your entertainment.
You're welcome.
I'm Dee, a writer and podcaster.
And I'm Isla from Criminally Good Books, a true crime and crime fiction bookshop in York.
Follow us on all the socials.
Except for X, obviously.
Or have a look at our website, switchbladesisterssocialclub.com.
Check them out for all our latest episodes, events, deals, and other weird stuff.
Listeners' discretion advised. Hi!
Hey you! Looking cute.
Hello! Oh, you're looking cute. We are super excited. We were just talking about how next week we are going to Harrogate Crime Writing Festival.
I cannot wait, Dee. I'm so excited. It's like the highlight of my year, right?
It really is. So this will be the third one we've gone to. And both years, the first year was so good that when we went the second year, I was like, don't expect it to be the same. It was so awesome.
Yeah,
it was possibly really awesome. Be that good again, and it just was.
It's such a lovely festival because it's for the readers.
Yeah, and so it's like half the people are in the sort of business, let's say writers, publishers, agents, booksellers, etc., and then the other half are the readers or the fans or whatever.
The fans.
And
you can be a fan and a bookseller, by the way, just to say. You can be
and an author and a fan.
And an author, exactly. You can tick loads of boxes.
Yeah. And the first year we went was because you already knew you wanted to set up the bookshop, and but it was still like a little baby idea in your brain.
Yep.
And
in both our brains, Dee. In both our brains.
And yeah, it was a little bit of a recce mission. And then when we went last year, obviously the shop had been set up and stuff. Yep. So and now we're going with you having the shop being well established and me having a book under my belt.
I cannot wait to hear more about your book and all of that. It's going to be so exciting, Dee. So exciting.
So, well,
you're so clever.
Publisher. And for some of you might know that I got my publisher actually last year at Harrogate, and we're still ironing out details and whatever, but hopefully soon my book will be published. Are we allowed to say that
we gay crashed? Oh, that'd be fun. Imagine gay crashing. We gate crashed an event, and then that's how you met them, right?
Yeah, basically you and I had been drinking because it is a festival that revolves around a beer tent, and that's one of the things I love. It's not like other conferences or conventions or festivals where you don't get to interact very much with the other attendees or the panelists or whatever. All the panelists are there for the entirety of it, and they all socialize. They see it as like it's an opportunity to go and meet their readers and so forth. So you actually get to go and talk to like your favorite authors, which is bonkers.
I know.
Like we were fangirling the whole fucking time, right?
Absolutely.
And we may or may not have had a bit to drink, and I may or may not have got a bit annoyed about buying all my own drinks. Which makes me sound so princessy. I don't expect anyone to buy my drinks, but on this occasion I guess I kind of did. They have lots of like private events off to the side. I'm not condoning my behavior. I'm just telling you what happened, right? And lots of like publisher and agent events and whatever that not everyone's invited to. And I was most definitely not invited to this one event. But all I could see was this table of glasses of prosecco. In my mind, it was a sea of prosecco.
And a sea of prosecco. It was like 25 glasses.
I was like, I'm in. So just kind of sauntered in like we owned the place, and drank a lot of the prosecco. Obviously with my event planning background, I'm very good at being drunk at an event and still being quite useful at them because that was basically my job. So ended up serving canapes and making sure turns out it was Linda LaPlante's book launch, making sure she had enough to drink or whatever, and handing out ibuprofen and paracetamol to those with period cramps and so forth. And I got talking to this lovely lady, and I eventually confessed, I'm not meant to be here. And she's like, I know, I organized this event. And I was like, why didn't you kick me out?
I did not know that part. Thank you for not telling me, because I would have
Yeah, this was right at the end as we were leaving.
Yeah.
And I got to know her very well. And she's based in London. We'd gone for drinks and so forth. And she was telling me like they don't accept unsolicited applications, but she's really keen to have a book on the different like crime thriller books on these different types of themes.
Mm.
And then after a while, like a few weeks even, I like emailed her and I was like, you know what? How about I pitch you some ideas? And she was like, yeah, I was desperate for you to say that.
That's so
And
cool though, isn't it?
next thing you know, I mean, I've had a few attempts at writing books and so forth, but
And also editing your dad's book. Come
yeah, I
on.
mean, obviously I'm a journalist and so forth, so I do write, but I was like, you know, this is the first time I've written fiction since like school. And she was like, yeah, but you know, and
She saw a talent day.
so it's just really exciting. So hopefully soon,
Mm,
I'll keep you all posted. But yeah,
that'd be
so
so cool.
amazing things can happen when you get drunk and get crash parties.
Well, exactly. And you don't have to get drunk and you don't have to great crash to have a great
No,
time at Harrogate, but it does
no.
help. But the authors are just so lovely. And if anyone's going, like just, I thought what was really refreshing is the chair of the Friends of the Harrogate Festival stood up in our first year. And she basically said, didn't she? She said, authors, go up to authors, offer to buy them a drink at the bar. They will say yes, go and chat to them. This event is not for them, it's for you, the readers. And because that's why the authors are there. They're in the positions of being an author, like being a published author and being able to do more and more books because people buy those books. So she's like, don't be afraid, this event is for you. And that's what I just thought was just so nice.
Yeah.
And it's been really nice for me because obviously now we've got authors that are contacting us saying, "Oh, I'm going to be in Harrogate. Can I pop in and sign some books? And, can I do an event with you?" And we have got like 12 events lined up, like all through the year so far. And there's like more and more and more. And we've got a big one, which I can announce actually on here. So we've got Mick Herron, who is the chair
Of
of
Harrogate this
Harrogate, is going
year.
to be doing an event with us in October. So we're
So
super,
they
super,
change the
super
chair
excited.
every year, don't
Mhm,
they? And
exactly.
he's obviously the writer of Slow Horses and a bunch of
Yep.
other things, and he's
He's
phenomenal.
amazing.
And again, we spent quite a nice time chatting with him last year as well. I think if you're an author that doesn't want to talk to your readers, you
Mhm.
wouldn't go to Harrogate because it's very
Yeah.
much on the understanding you're going to do whatever panel, book signing, whatever, but you're
Mm,
also expected to sit and talk to people and be social with people. So I think
exactly.
if that's not
Exactly.
their bag, they just wouldn't go to
Mm,
this specific
mm,
festival. So the only ones that are there are very keen to talk to you, which is so
exactly.
fun.
It is so nice. And the other thing to say, like, obviously, this is a true crime podcast, and Harrogate is like mainly crime fiction. But we met former DCI Russell Waite there last year, and
Mm-hmm.
so he was involved in the Somme murder investigation. Obviously, absolutely
That's Holly
horrific.
and Jessica. Yeah,
Jessica,
Holly Wells
yeah,
and
we
Jessica
all
Chapman.
all remember that one. He was involved in that and n national safeguarding lead, and we're doing an event with him shortly coming up. So it's just like super exciting. You meet these people, whether you're a fan, whether you're in the business, and it's just like such a great
Yeah.
festival. And if you don't want to pay for like a weekend pass, you pay £10 and that gets you into the beer tent on the day, and that's where most of the action happens. You don't even have to go to any of the sessions. But
So
anyway,
if you're
there you go.
already going to Harrogate, let us know because we'd love to have a drink with you.
Yep. And as
Yep.
Dee said, like she'd love someone to buy her a drink.
I can buy my own drinks, but I'll definitely like to have people to share my drinks with. So,
Exactly.
my problem is the opposite. I'm normally like, shots for everyone. And then the next day, like, oh, I've got to sell my organs to pay my mortgage this month because of all the shots I bought, but no one's going to want my liver because of all the shots I bought. So, yeah, so it's catch 22. Right, so today is the last of 3 episodes where I'm presenting stuff to you to get you into the
I'm
swing
so
of things.
excited.
And this one is very local to me, and especially where I used to live in sort of Chiswick. I'll tell you the sources at the end because all of them give away the topic.
Okay.
So, and give away stuff about the story that I want to reveal in my own time. So, this is the case of Jack the stripper. No, that's
Oh
not a
my.
typo.
Wow. I'm
Jack the
interested.
Stripper, sometimes
Mm.
called the Hammersmith nude murders.
Oh
And this
God, no.
happened, yeah, I mean, look, it's a true crime podcast. None of this is going to be pleasant, right?
Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah. So it's 1964, 1965-ish, right? There's 8 murders attributed to this person, but as always, there could be more. All the victims were sex workers who were found undressed near the river, round about the Chiswick Hammersmith area. He was called Jack the Stripper because it was obviously a reference to Jack the Ripper and because the women were found with their clothes removed. There's 2 murders in 1959 and 1963 that are also potentially linked. And this case involved Scotland Yard launching one of the biggest manhunts in its history. So I'm going to give you some context, right? So 1960s context. London at the time was vibrant and it was changing. It was getting more relaxed in terms of morality. So there was more sexual freedom and personal liberties and so forth. Sex workers were prominent basically everywhere. Like it's much more hidden these days. Like, you know, the area, King's Cross, for example.
Mm.
Now it's all fancy what's it called? Cold Drop Yard and all these fancy boutiques and restaurants and hotels and whatever. When we were growing up, it was like drugs and prostitutes, sex workers fucking everywhere, you know?
Yeah. Mm.
And that's pretty much how London was in a lot of places.
I mean, I
So
had a flat in Elephant and Castle, and it was, it was rough, and now it's all gentrified. It's,
now
yeah,
there's
it's
like the world food market and all of these things.
exactly.
It's just we're literally watching whole areas of London like changing in front of our eyes. And obviously some of it is good. It's nice that a lot of
Mhm.
these areas are safer. It's sad that it's pushing out people, the locals who now can't afford to live in those areas anymore.
Exactly. Yeah, I know that's tragic.
And I don't know enough about the whole process of gentrification to really talk about it so much. But it's definitely a thing that's happening and it's bonkers. Like Hackney.
Mm.
Hackney. I went there, I went into a cafe that didn't even serve normal milk. It only had oat milk and pea sprout milk.
Oh God, I remember you talking about this before. Like, what is
Yeah.
pea sprout?
I mean, it tastes like oat milk, but it's like the thought of a vegan cafe in like 90s Hackney. Do you know what I mean? It's just bonkers. It's bonkers.
I remember some of those early days, 90s cafes that fell through because they were ahead of their time. They opened up now with all the bean sprout and all the oat milk and all the,
Yeah.
pea sprout, whatever it's called. They'd be fine, but back then they were ahead of the time and just didn't make it.
I mean, I would say we were well into the 2000s before it became common for a cafe to
Mm.
have soya milk. And that's the
Oh God,
fucking
yeah.
worst milk alternative. There, I said it. It is. So, sex workers were prominent in many, many areas that you would just never expect in this day. And first, I want to talk about the first 2 victims, even though they weren't linked to Jack the Stripper until later. So it was only well after the first official ones that they realized that these 2 previous ones were probably by the same person. Um, it gets a bit confusing because a lot of the victims, they're all sex workers. Many of them have lots of different names, aliases, and so forth. Due to the nature of their lifestyle or whatever, it's probably expected. So we have the first victim, Elizabeth Figg / Anne Phillips. She went by both names, and she was she was a business girl, which is what sex workers called themselves at the time. I don't know
Okay.
if I love it or hate it, but
Mm.
it's what it's. She was born in 1938 in Cheshire. She was found by the police on the 17th of June, 1959 at 5:10 a.m. at Duke's Meadows in Chiswick. Figg's body was found in the scrubland between Dan Mason Drive and the river towpath, approximately 200 yards from Barnes Bridge. She was 21.
Mm.
Now, this area at the time by the river was full of business girls, which is
Mhm.
crazy when you think about that area now. It is basically right around the corner from where my parents live in Chiswick. I'm going to show you a photo because
Is it of your mom and dad? please?
No, it's
Oh,
not, but I
okay.
can. I'm just going to show you a picture of what Duke's Meadows looks like now. It's
This is ringing bells for me. I'm gonna see. I'm not gonna say anything, obviously, but this is ringing bells.
like you can see how lush it
Oh, that is
is.
lovely. Oh my God, look at that. Is that
Yeah,
like a golf course and all
there's a
fancy
driving
pants?
range. There is, right, this thing there that I was like, I didn't even know this existed. I don't know if it's still there, but there's an indoor ski place. But imagine a treadmill, but for skiing. So it's a ramp, and I can't work out which way it will go, but it
Yeah.
keeps on turning. So you can keep on skiing.
Oh,
So it's not
cool.
that high, but you're skiing and it's turning.
Oh, that's quite fun.
Bizarre, isn't it?
Yeah,
So look at it. I mean, look at this
it's
place. It's got
lovely.
like playgrounds. It's got like my sister takes the twins there to play. It's gorgeous. Um,
It's just all green. It just looks absolutely stunning.
exactly. It's lovely. Her clothes, so Elizabeth Figg, her clothes were ripped, her underwear, her heels, and her purse were missing. The cause of death was asphyxiation due to manual strangulation, and the time of death was sort of midnight to 2 a.m. Her picture was posted in local papers, and she was identified by her roommate and her mother. Can you imagine
Mm,
that you just see this thing in the local paper and you're like, fuck, that's my daughter?
no.
Investigators thought she was murdered in the suspect's car and that the suspect would have been one of her clients. And that's why she took her shoes and her underwear off, and then she was strangled. So those items were in the suspect's car. That's the theory they were working on.
Along with her
Um,
purse,
yeah, across the
presumably.
river from where she's found is a pub, and the landlord saw some headlights at 12:05 and heard a scream. Um, and I think this is the Ship pub in Mortlake. Just judging
Okay.
if it's
Yeah.
still a pub that's open. There's a pub called the
Yeah.
Ship, which is lovely across the river from where this happened.
Mm.
The next victim was Gwyneth Rees, born 1941 in Wales. This is another element that makes me sad. All these girls that have come from different areas of the UK, obviously to London, where they, I guess, had hopes of having a better lifestyle or having more
Yeah.
opportunities, and then having to get involved in sex work and then ending up a victim of this horrible crime. It just makes me really sad.
Mm.
She also went by a few names. She went missing on the 29th of September, 1963. She was 23 years old.
Mm.
She was only found on the 8th of November, so like over a month after, on Townmead Road in Mortlake at a rubbish dump, only 40 yards away from the river, which is meters, because I don't know what yards are, but it's only a
Yeah.
few meters away from the river.
Like in the rubbish dump.
Yeah, at a rubbish dump. She was mostly naked apart from a single stocking. There was no cause of death made public. So now we have the third victim, who is the first victim originally tied to Jack the Stripper. It was Hannah Tailford. So she's often referred to as the first victim because, like I said, they only linked the other two to him later. She was born in 1933 in Northumberland. She was tiny. She was only 5'2", and actually all the victims were really, really short. Um, she also had multiple names that she went by. I've tried to use like the main name that they worked by because otherwise there's unfortunately a lot of victims and each one with a lot of names. So on the 2nd of February, 1964, she was found dead at age 31. She was on the Thames by Linden House, which is a rowing club west of Hammersmith Bridge. Her underwear was found down her throat. Her teeth were
Ooh.
missing. She was manually strangled and then drowned. She'd been missing for 10 days and she was pregnant at the time of her death. They worked out using tides and so forth that she was thrown into the river 24 hours before she was found, about half a mile upstream, meaning by Duke's Meadows. I also want to show you some
Right.
pictures because I live, like I said, my parents live really close to this. And actually, when I was researching this case, I asked my mom when she was driving, because I don't want to take photos while I'm driving. I asked her if she could
Ah,
take pictures. This is Dan Mason Drive, so probably where where one of the victims was found and where a few others had been possibly thrown in the river. It's
Hmm.
not much to look at, but it's a crossroad.
No.
It goes across the river to the bridge, and then you go down
Mm.
this little road along the river, and it's a lovely walk. It goes towards that, that the golf course that I told you about, the
Yeah.
driving range, which is so fun. I've gone there a
Mm.
couple of times. They have a bar. Shit at golf. I don't give a fuck about golf, but you
But
basically
there's a bar. Basically, if you want Dee to go to anything, tell her there's a bar. It could be anything, anything at all.
it helps.
Especially if there's rum and if there's Coke.
Yeah.
I'm
Well, in
referring
this
to
case,
Coke that you drink.
the last time I was there, I actually had Pims, and I'm okay with that in
Oh,
a nice summer's day. So, yeah. So then we have the fourth victim, Irene Charlotte Lockwood. She was born in 1938 in Nottinghamshire. She also operated under different names, and she was found at, she was 25 when she was found on the 8th of April, 1964. She was found on the banks of the Thames between Chiswick and Barnes, which again is in this very same location.
mm.
Police worked out that she was killed in a different place to where her body was found, and that the cause of death was drowning. She was also pregnant at the time of her death. She was only 5 foot tall. So at this point, they're thinking either this killer has got like
Fetish.
a fetish for shorter girls, or he's not that tall himself, and so he has to pick smaller women in order to be sort of more sure that he can overpower them. It's at this point that the media starts reporting on him as Jack the Stripper, which again, I hate, because we've talked about this many times on this podcast. I don't like when they get given names that I think they'll be quite proud of, you know?
And also, I think it belittles the women and the crime as well.
Yeah.
So it's like he stripped
Yeah.
them. Like what, you know?
Yeah. And that link to Jack the Ripper, who's obviously like must be a almost hero icon
Oh
in
yeah,
the
for
eyes of a
loads of
lot
people.
of,
Oh my
yeah.
God.
So I
Yeah.
I would prefer the Hammersmith nude murders,
Mm.
but we can't escape the fact that he was known as Jack the Stripper. Um, there's a place in Twickenham called Jack the Stripper. It used to be like a woodworking place. I don't know if they knew about the actual Jack the Stripper. It might have just
Oh,
been someone called Jack who thought it was a witty name. I
oh
can't
yeah. You
imagine
can
they
see
weren't aware.
why. You can see why they would
Well,
think it would be fun.
it's been shut for as long as I've known the place, which is over 10 years now. And
Okay.
it looks ancient. So I kind of feel like it was around at the time of this. So I don't know. Um, Irene's roommate had been bludgeoned to death only a few months before, and the media picked up on this. It was a coincidence, it was unrelated. Unfortunately, sex work is a risky profession. Again, not victim blaming, but it is a profession that
Yeah.
unfortunately puts you in contact and puts you in situations where you're much more vulnerable, especially in the 60s. And
Mm.
especially with the fact that, the care and attention of an investigation might not be as high as it would be for someone who wasn't involved in the criminal underworld and sex
Exactly.
work at the time.
Hmm.
But there was an increased police presence at the riverside at the time, but to no avail, because soon after there was the next victim. Bear in mind, these are like 8 victims in the space of about a year and a bit. So this is,
Yeah, so
yeah.
close.
The next victim, Helen Catherine Barthélemy, known as Teddy to her friends. She was born in 1941 in East Lothian, Scotland, one of your fellow countrymen,
Scots.
country persons. She was 22 when she was found dead on the 24th of April, 1964. She was found in an alley in Brentford, which is, again, very close to this area, close to the river. It was, again, a case of manual asphyxiation, which, like previous cases, involves being strangled by hand rather than
Yeah.
using something like a ligature or something like that. Police thought she'd been dumped by a car. Again, like a lot of the other victims, some of her front teeth had been knocked out post-mortem. Now, she had swallowed sperm.
Okay.
So obviously this is 60s. They don't have anything like DNA or whatever, but they can clearly identify different things. And they also found that she had flecks of paint on her, which were determined to be from a car. And police thought it might come from the place where the suspect works. So they're finally getting some clues. They just don't know what they even mean at this point.
Where were the paint specks, like in her mouth or
I think just on her
neck?
person.
Okay.
So the police start focusing on businesses in the area that are car related and that use sort of pressurized paint sprays.
Okay.
Um, they interviewed
Smart.
neighbors. Yeah, yeah. So they're starting to use, without any kind of DNA to use, they're using, like, they're doing some good old fashioned coppering, as
Colin
Colin
would
Sutton would
say.
say. Yeah. They interviewed neighbors of Helen and found a neighbor who said that he often heard a car pick her up at 12:30 and bring her back at 4:30 a.m. I don't know if that led to anything. Then we have the sixth victim, Mary Fleming. She was
I was
also
hoping
born.
you were going to stop there, that there would be no more.
No,
There's
I
more.
told you eight
I
at
know.
least.
I forgot.
Uh, yeah. So Mary Fleming was born in 1933, also in Scotland. She was 30. She went missing on the 11th of July, 1964. And then her body was found 3 days later on the 14th of July in a dead end road, sort of behind the Sainsbury's area of Chiswick, sort of South Acton way, by a chauffeur. So some of you will know this area. It's on Chiswick High Road, and it would have been
It's
Chiswick High Road at the
nice.
time.
Yeah.
It's so nice. It's like by Turnham Green, the green, not the
Yep.
station. I used to live nearby there as well.
Yeah. It's
Um,
lovely.
Witnesses said they heard a car just before they found her body. Again, it was asphyxiation by strangulation. There were no struggle marks on her body, but she also had missing teeth and had swallowed sperm. And there were also these specks of paint. And
Right.
she was naked as well. The seventh victim was Frances Brown. I didn't realize how many Scottish people. She was born in 1943 from Glasgow.
Mhm.
She also went by different names. Her real name was actually Margaret McGowan, which is good old
Good old
Scottish name,
Scottish
isn't
name.
it? She had like literally about 20 different aliases, which must have made it incredibly difficult to do any kind of victimology study, like the background of these ladies.
Mm. And
Um,
especially a lot of them wouldn't have wanted to be found because they would have been
yeah,
leaving like abusive relationships or like, leaving
yeah,
difficult
you know,
situations potentially. Not
I'm
always.
sure a bunch of them have been involved in criminal activity, and that might be the reason for these different aliases and so forth. But it
Hmm.
must have made it very difficult to research them as individuals, especially like pre-internet time, right?
Yeah, exactly.
23rd of August, 1964 was the last night she was seen getting into a client's car. And then the 25th of November, so several months later, she was found in a car, a Ford Zephyr, in Kensington, literally in the street with the old town hall, just off High Street, Kensington, which is
So she was
bizarre.
found in a car.
Yeah. She was strangled to death. It was, again, manual strangulation. She was also very short, and she also had teeth missing. Then we have the eighth victim, Bridget O'Hare. She was born in 1937 in Dublin. She went missing on the 11th of January, 1965. She was 28 years old. She was 5'2", which is the tallest of the victims. None of the victims were taller than 5'2". Um, she was found in a shepherd's bush, asphyxiation by strangulation again, and also had these flecks of paint.
What about her
So,
teeth? Were they gone as well? Like,
I don't
I'm
know
not
about
sure about
this
hers.
one.
This is
Um,
just so bizarre, Dee.
Yeah. So sadly, the paint was found to be from an electrical transformer next to where she was found. So she was thought to be dead for a while, with the killer keeping her body for a long time before dumping. And if you remember, some of the others were found a while after they went missing. So I'm going to show you a map of where the victims
Hmm.
were found, because that will make it a bit clearer, especially if you're not super familiar with London. So you can see one, two,
Yep.
three, four, five, six, seven, eight. So eight was the furthest away
Oh, okay. I was
from,
thinking they were actually closer together than
yeah,
that,
I mean, but
but
remember, some of them were suspected of being dumped
yeah, of course. Yeah.
further away
Sorry.
from where the person was
Yeah,
found.
yeah,
And
yeah.
like number three or number four was found to have washed further along the
Mm,
river. So would have
mm.
been dumped in the river closer to one and two. So and they all had like a lot of similarities, which was making it very clear that they were very that it was the same perpetrator.
Yeah.
So this is all a very small area of West London. So it must have been terrifying for if you
Mm.
were a sex worker at the time.
Oh,
I know. So you can see that some of them might have been mug shots. So
Do you know what I think is like really interesting, Dee, is that all these women look to me quite different, but they look older than their years. I don't know if that's just a thing from the time, they're in their 20s
Yeah.
and a couple of them 30, 31.
Yeah, I think that obviously it's a very different style in the 60s,
Mm,
but also I imagine they had a hard life,
yeah, exactly. They had a hard life.
and I'm sure that's reflected in their appearance. So just makes me sad though, because like I said, the fact that they've all like come to London from other places as well to start a new
Mm,
life, and this has happened to them. So on the 20th of February, 1965, the police named a man that they thought could help. Anthony John Holland, who lived in the area, Hammersmith. He was 29 years old. And on the 28th of February, 1965, police appealed to an unnamed man who might have some key information. So on the pledge that his identity would remain a secret. So whether these were clients of some of the women or one of the women or whatever, but they were like people of interest at this
mm.
point. And spring of 1965, Scotland Yard get a lead. A sample of the paint, which matched the paint on the victims, was found on a concealed transformer on the Heron estate in Acton. And it was opposite a paint spraying shop. So basically, there's a paint spraying shop, and then there's this like transformer. I don't know what a transformer is, but it was in a little sort of brick
Yeah.
unit.
Mm.
And so they start suspecting, was he keeping the women in this? And then the paint was like coming
Coming
in
off
through the
on,
ventilation from the
yeah.
paint spraying factory. Police this is like one of those things the police do that you're like, must take a lot of thought because it could backfire dramatically. They make a news conference, and they made a false statement that they had 20 suspects, but they've narrowed it down to 10 and now down to 3 suspects. So they were bullshitting.
Okay.
They had 0 suspects.
Yeah, that's very brave because if it, yeah.
Yeah. So obviously they're hoping to like flush out,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
make the killer make a mistake or flush
Or
him
do
out in some
something
way or
or move a
something.
body or something.
Yeah. And after this press conference, the killing stopped. Now, we know there's lots of different reasons why this can happen. Did
Yep.
the killer get scared? Even if the killer got scared, these are clearly like impulses that the killer can't control. So
Mm.
even if they're scared and they temporarily stop, it's unlikely that that would be enough to scare them off killing ever again.
Mm-hmm.
Did they get arrested?
Yep.
Did they die? Did they get
Mm.
married or have some change of
Mm.
circumstance that meant that that urge wasn't as strong anymore? Did they change their MO completely so that the new murders were no longer linked to the old ones? That's unlikely as well.
Yeah, I
But,
was going to
they
say
had,
it's unlikely.
it's unlikely, but, did he move? Did he
Mm.
move? There's a million different reasons. Um, so here are the theories of the police at this time, that all the victims were hired by a client, and that client was the perpetrator. The
Mm-hmm.
murderer committed sexual acts post-mortem, and this is what was knocking out the teeth. Often the bodies were stored for a period of time near this paint sprayer before dumping the body. And some of the victims were part of this underground party scene in London, and some had done pornographic material, films, other things, and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
Which is, not a huge surprise considering the time and the profession they were
Mm.
in. And I don't know if it's related to this. And I don't think the police did either. They were just kind of collecting facts that they knew.
Mm.
Um, on a random side note, at least one of the victims was involved in the Profumo affair.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, which I will explain for those of you. I don't know very much about it. I knew about it, but not much. And maybe we do an episode on it. But in
Mm.
1961, John Profumo was a 46-year-old Secretary of State for War, and he had an affair with a 19-year-old model, Christine Keeler. But then it was also found out that she had relations with a Soviet attaché. So this is why it became such a big deal, not
Yeah.
because a politician was having an affair with a young woman. I mean, especially in the 60s. I imagine that's just like, eh. But the
Yeah.
fact that she also
Compromising secrets in the government.
was she sharing secrets?
Hmm.
Was he sharing secrets? And then was she passing them on? Margaret McGowan slash Frances Brown had testified in the court case to having been hired by Dr. Stephen Ward, the society osteopath who procured sex workers for powerful men. So she was involved in that. I
Right.
think it was totally unrelated, but it's just interesting, right? And obviously you can imagine at the time probably sold a lot of papers.
Yeah.
Hannah Tailford, one of the other victims, she was also linked to the scandal. So this led to people thinking all the victims may have known each other, and perhaps the suspect was linked to all of them in some way through that scene.
Mm.
It's possible that a few of them knew each other if they were working in the same area, in the same profession. It's unclear. It's unclear whether that was related to what happened to them. Now, I am going to tell you something that you're going to hate.
Mhm.
This is unsolved.
What?
It's unsolved. We do not know to this day who Jack the Stripper is.
No.
So we are going to look at some of the possible suspects
Okay.
and discuss what we think of them. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
A whole bunch of people came into not the limelight, that's the wrong word, but came under suspicion. I've narrowed it down to the ones that I think are most sort of likely or have most that I'm most suspicious about, basically. In my
DCID.
DCID. Oh, that's got a nice ring to it.
It does, doesn't it?
Kenneth Archibald. He owned a nightclub or was a caretaker for a lawn club, depending on the source, or both.
Is one of the sources himself that he bigged himself up.
Oh, the nightclub.
I'm a nightclub owner.
Obviously, this is a pre-internet time, pre-putting newspaper articles online and whatever. So some of the sources contradict each other, and some of the he actually walked into the police station and confessed to killing Irene Lockwood, but not the others. He gave some information about her clothing and the location of the dumping and so forth that weren't, that was more than what he could have got from the media. When
Right.
they looked through Lockwood's flat, they found a card for his club. But then he retracted his confession and pleaded not guilty. He said he was drunk when he confessed. But it went to trial in 1964. So he went to trial for this one murder and was found not guilty at trial because there wasn't enough physical evidence to convict him of this crime. And obviously they must have been working on the assumption if he's guilty of this one murder, he must be guilty of the others. So I don't know how I feel about that one. I feel like unlikely. I feel like it's more likely he knew the person who did it. Maybe he got some info.
Thinking. Yeah, but
right? It seems I mean, he sounds dodgy as fuck. I'm sure he's guilty of some crimes, but it doesn't sound like it's this one.
Maybe he wanted to impress the killer or
I don't know.
divert attention, or maybe
weird.
he was drunk. Like, I mean, but surely, do the police really? Anyway.
I don't know. You would have thought they could tell the difference,
Or they would
right?
wait until he was sober, and then anyway, I don't know how it works. If you make a confession when you're drunk, presumably you have to wait.
Weird one to just confess to the one murder when they've linked a whole bunch of these murders together. So it's just bizarre. It's bizarre. This one's gonna leave you like annoyed because there's so many unanswered questions. Like, who the fuck was he, and why are all these people? What are they all doing? The next one is also a weird one. It's a British light heavyweight boxing champion. I don't know about the different categories of boxing, but he was a boxer, Freddie Mills. There was a guy called Jimmy Tippett Jr., who was a reformed gangster who in 2001 was researching a book on London's gangland. He said he came across information that it was Freddie Mills. It's not the first time that Freddie Mills was linked to these murders. Peter Neal was a journalist who told police in 1972 that he got information that it was Freddie Mills from one of his informants, and that this was, in quotation marks, common knowledge in the West End. It was known that he was into very rough sex. Also, remember that the West End is not like it was now. It was full of sex workers, gangs, nightclubs that were, seedy and all sorts. Freddie Mills, this boxer, was well into that world. Mills apparently took his own life in July 1965, a few months after the last body was discovered. So meaning he died and then there were no more murders.
Oh, interesting. So that's a very interesting one. And the fact that he's a boxer as well, and their teeth were out.
And he was known for rough sex anyways. Many people suspected that his suicide was actually murder.
Right, okay.
Again, I don't know if he committed these murders or whether his own murder was linked to that, or the suspicion that he was the one committing these murders, because it sounds like he was involved in a lot of dodgy shit that he could have got killed for, right?
Mm.
But that's interesting, isn't it? That a reformed gangster and a journalist sort of round about that time who has informants on the scene, let's say, both came with information that it was him.
And did that information came after he died?
Yeah, because he died only a few months after the last body was found.
Mm-hmm.
So at the time of his death, until about 1972, when the journalist went to the police with it, the police were unaware of any potential link. But it seems like by that point, it was known, like I said, common knowledge in the West End that he had been committing these murders. But like you said about the other guys, some of these people might have liked to have been considered the one committing these murders, because it added to their, reputation and the persona that they were trying to portray and so forth, which is just disgusting in its own way. Then we've got Tommy Butler. So two men, Jimmy Evans and Martin Short, wrote a book called The Survivor in 2002 and claimed that Jack the Stripper was Superintendent Tommy Butler of the Metropolitan Police Flying Squad. They are not the only people who suspected a police officer.
And sorry, who are these two people, Dee?
I don't know. They wrote a book, a true crime book.
Like, I mean, they could beef against him. Like, what's their deal? But anyway, very interesting. If there's not just one person or a couple of people thinking it's this police officer.
So they've clearly done a bit of investigation on the case. I don't know what their background is, but that's what they found. That's what they believe. Like I said, not the only ones that thought that it might have been a police officer, because obviously that, if it was someone with knowledge of law enforcement and whatever, it would help them evade capture. David Seabrook wrote a book called Jack of Jumps in 2006 and claimed several senior detectives suspected it was a former Metropolitan Police detective. So was it a case that those investigating it thought it was a police officer and therefore didn't really work too hard on solving the crime, because that would have been a bad look? There's a journalist called Owen Summers who also raised this belief in the 70s, so only a few years after the last murder. Daily Mirror journalist Brian McConnell wrote a book in 1974, so again about 10 years after the murder started, where he goes a step further and names a former police officer, Dick Kirby. So we've got a lot of people thinking it might have been a police officer.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not the first time that a police officer has committed a murder, Dee.
No, it is not. So some people suspecting a police officer of committing the crimes, others suspecting the police officers of covering up the crimes because they suspect it's a police officer.
Yeah.
Oh, just, next level terrifying, isn't it? Then we have Harold Jones. He was put forward as a possible suspect in 2011. So, people are still trying to figure this shit out, because it's upsetting that these things happened to so many women in London, and we still don't know who it is. So Harold Jones was a convicted murderer from Wales. He killed 2 girls in 1921 in Wales when he was just 15.
1921, okay. So he was in
So,
his 50s when these murders happened.
yeah, so he would have been born in about 1906.
Oh,
And
sorry,
yeah,
I've got that.
so yeah, like
60s.
50s, 50, mid 50s, let's say.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, because he was 15 when he committed these murders, there was a death sentence at the time in the UK, but he didn't get the death sentence because he was a child still. He did get a life sentence instead, but he was released at 35 for good behavior. They actually said he had exemplary behavior, which, I have an issue with this. Because especially when your crimes are impossible in prison, killing young girls,
Yeah, exactly.
you
Yay for
know,
you. You're in an all-male prison and you didn't kill any women for
any
20
young
odd years.
girls. It's bizarre, isn't it? Isn't it bizarre? Like, you would have thought if your behavior is exemplary, then
Mm.
you get out at the time that you've been given.
Yeah, but
And
that
if you
doesn't
behave
happen to, like, honestly,
badly,
like, I mean,
I know, but that's the logic, right? If you
I
behave badly,
know.
you get time added. Anyways, he lived in Fulham and died in 1971, so a few years after
Okay.
the Jack the Stripper murders.
Hmm.
He was never considered a suspect by police at the time, apparently.
Okay.
But like I said, he got put forward as a suspect in 2011. Writer Neil Milkins also thought it might be him. He said all the murders happened during a period where Jones's whereabouts were unknown, and the deaths were very similar. Also, he died in 1971, but the murders stopped when he got very ill with bone cancer.
Mm.
So, um, all right. I am going to put forth what I think. No, this is what Scotland Yard think is the strongest suspect,
Okay, okay, okay.
right?
Not your one, or
I don't
maybe.
know. I'm gonna
Okay.
we'll have a chat afterwards.
Yeah, yeah.
Mungo Ireland was the strongest suspect according to Scotland Yard. He was a
Hmm.
Scottish security guard at Heron Estate where the flecks of paint were traced to. Do you remember I said there was a paint
Yeah,
spraying
yeah,
factory?
yeah.
And then there was this little brick kind of unit that was suspected of
Transistor unit.
possibly
Yeah.
holding the bodies for a while. And again,
Mm.
obviously they don't have DNA or anything, so they can't check with DNA if there were bodies in this brick unit. He regularly used sex workers and they knew him as Big John. He was married and he was in his 40s at the time. Soon after this connection was made, and after the police conference where they made this announcement that they were so close to catching the killer, Ireland took his own life. His suicide note, which he wrote to his wife, said, "To save you and the police looking for me, I'll be in the garage." Also, the killing stopped again as soon as he took his life.
Bloody hell.
The Scotland Yard seemed to be so sure that he was the perpetrator that they kind of wound down the investigation after he died. Scotland Yard Serious Crime Review Group reinvestigated the Hammersmith murders between 2006 and 2007. Still an
Okay.
open case, still a
Okay.
serious open case. And this resulted in a new conclusion. A statement read, "The circumstantial evidence against Mungo Ireland is very strong, and it was the view of the officers conducting the most recent review of this case that he was most likely responsible. Although Ireland's work records indicated that he was in Scotland on the night of Bridget O'Hara's disappearance, Scotland Yard believe it's possible that these may have been falsified." I
Oh, come
imagine
on.
it's,
Like, what is it? A
yeah,
clocking in and clocking out system? Oh, mate, can you stamp me in, please? I'll buy you a pint
yeah,
at the pub.
pre sort of computers everywhere. Do you know what I
Come
mean?
on.
Um,
No CCTV.
it's bullshit, isn't it? This is the best e-fit that they got during the investigation, and it's no
Oh, show
fucking
me, show me,
wonder
show me.
that they never found this guy if this is what they were working with. I mean, it's weird because it's quite
It's quite a unique face.
and shape and
Yeah,
ears,
yeah. Sticky out ears, side parting, dark
dark
hair,
hair, it seems,
broad
quite
nose.
small features or big forehead,
Do you know what he
very round
reminds me?
jaw.
He actually looks like, you talked about the boxer. He looks a bit like a boxer. You know how like some boxers, like obviously they have like damage to their nose and their ears. He kind of looked like a bit of a boxer.
Yeah, like kind of a misshapen
Mm.
face,
Yeah.
like bones have been broken, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And
Exactly.
reset, not great.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So will there ever be an arrest? Like, is their DNA still on file? Some of the victims had swallowed sperm. Did they save it? I don't know. I
Yeah.
still had questions.
Those are my big questions. What
So
can be
you'll like
tested?
this.
Oh,
I did more research and it involves one of
obviously.
our favorites. I watched a documentary called Dark Sun with David Wilson.
Yeah.
So he's a criminologist.
Professor David Wilson.
Yeah, you see him very often on a lot of true crime documentaries, and he comes to CrimeCon, and he looked into this, the Jack the Stripper, the Hammersmith nude murders, in this 2019 documentary. So again, people are still wanting answers for this. So it's called Dark Sun, The Hunt for a Serial Killer. Presuming they might say whether or not there was any DNA or something that could be used in the future. They actually focused on Harold Jones. Do you remember the one that was 15 in Wales and he killed two girls?
Yeah.
And then at the time of the murders was in the Hammersmith area, and the murders stopped when he got very ill with bone cancer.
Yeah.
So they were focusing on him. Obviously, this raises for me questions of confirmation bias, because all of those victims, you could see there's lots of evidence or lots of stuff that supports that they are capable of these murders and so forth. But I trust David Wilson. He seems like a good man. And I was really impressed with the amount of research they did for this documentary, because they interviewed Harold Jones's daughter.
Okay, interesting.
And a bunch of the children of his victims.
Okay.
Of like, not children, but like family members of the victims, let's say.
Yeah.
And children of the victims of Jack the Stripper, but family members of the original two victims in Wales.
Got you.
All of these people are still super keen for justice, and I hope they find it. You know, it's a shame they didn't find the guy at the time, but I hope they manage to find the perpetrator during the lifetimes of the children of some of these sex workers. Some of them were mothers at the time, you know.
Yeah.
So I'm going to tell you a bit more about Harold Jones. At the time of the murders, like I said, he was living in the area. He was married with kids, but no one, not even his wife, his family, knew that he had been in prison for murder before. David Wilson did a lot of interviews with the two nieces of one of the victims. And so let me tell you about what happened in Wales, right? When Harold Jones was 15. 8-year-old Frida Burnell disappeared when she was popping to the shop. I imagine it's not uncommon for an 8-year-old to just pop to the shop in rural Wales. Different kind of area and so forth. And yeah, less awareness of the dangers out there maybe. I mean, when I was 7 and stuff, I was living in Holland and we would go cycling for fucking miles, but we were living in like not very rural, but we were living in a suburb in a very safe area of The Hague and everything, and it was just very common for kids to go out cycling on their own in groups and stuff.
God.
But now, like, the twins are 8, they're not fucking going anywhere on their own.
Nope.
So, yeah.
Nope.
So she was found the next day, deceased. Florence Little was 11, and she was a friend of Frida, and she was murdered after Frida in the same very, very small town. So this came up in the documentary. You know how Harold Jones was released for good behavior? He said before the release that he didn't want to lose the desire to kill. Why are you letting this guy go early?
He actually said he didn't want to lose the desire to kill.
Which implies he still has the desire to kill. And he doesn't want to change that. He lived 2 streets away from a couple of the victims of the Jack the Stripper victims. And unfortunately, there's no DNA evidence preserved, which is super frustrating.
Okay.
But let's go back to the Wales murders, right? So they went with a team of investigators there. So we have little Frida, who went to the shop. Harold worked there when he was 15. He
Okay.
told her to go round the corner to a storage unit, and he attempted to rape her, and then he bludgeoned her. When Frida didn't come home, her parents raised the alarm. At night, Harold moved her body to where it was found the next day. They traced her movements and they checked the storage unit, and they found her handkerchief, and they arrested Harold. He was arrested and sent to trial. But Mortimer, his employer, was so convinced that Harold was innocent that he lied in court to spare him. So I
By
guess he
saying
thought
what?
I guess he thought it was a witch hunt against his employee who he found innocent. That couldn't, I mean, it's not a surprise that you would think that this 15-year-old that you
Hmm.
hired was not
Wouldn't
capable
be
of killing.
capable. Yeah, because what does it
Yeah,
say about you hiring someone that's capable of that? Like,
yeah.
you'd be
No
worried about
one
his own
wants to,
reputation.
yeah, no one wants to feel like they've had the wool pulled over their eyes and whatever. So I guess he either said that he was with him at the time or gave him some kind of alibi.
Yeah.
The town celebrated because I guess they didn't want to think it was one of their own either. And
Mm.
so Harold Jones was released, and he was even paraded through the town and given a gold watch. Because I guess this town, this small knit community, they want to think it's an outsider.
Oh my God.
Little 11-year-old Florence, this is going to break your heart. She didn't believe him and openly accused him of murder to his face. So he then lured her into his house and murdered her too.
So
He
where was
strangled
his
her.
parents at this point? He's 15.
I don't know. I mean, 15 is basically 45 in, these times, right? You're down the
And
mines.
also
I
for
don't
a
know.
young girl who's like 11 and one that's 8, like, you know what it was like when we were at school? If there's people 2 years above us, they were like gods and you thought they were like so
Yeah.
mature.
And it's a shame that she was like out and about on her own, because like this murderer is still out there, whether you think it's Harold Jones or not. They know that
Mm,
no one's been done for it.
mm,
He strangled Florence and sexually assaulted her, and then slit her throat and drained her of blood. This time,
mm.
everyone was far less forgiving. Police noticed his wall had been cleaned and the body was found in the attic. Harold Jones pleaded not guilty, but eventually confessed in the hope of a more lenient sentence. As I said, he got life imprisonment rather than a death sentence because of his age. Um, there
And
were
served
letters,
21 years, right? 21 years he served?
yeah, 15 to
35.
35, so 20-ish years, yeah.
Mm.
There was a letter between his girlfriend and him when he was in prison where she says she didn't really like it when he asked her to spit in his mouth, which doesn't mean he killed anyone, but it's just a gross fact. Um, when he was arrested, he had about 7 handkerchiefs on him. So he was already sort of stealing
Oh,
things
right,
and,
right,
little
right. Oh my
trophies and whatever.
God.
Um, you know, the Jack the Stripper murders, including the 2 earlier ones that they eventually linked to him as well, they believe that the murders were so gruesome that it's unlikely that that was the first time that this man killed. They believe that the teeth were trophies,
Hmm.
um, that they might have been removed during some sort of rough sex act or beating, but that they were taken as trophies. And there was talk about an eyewitness who saw a struggle, which the police believe was Jack the Stripper with one of the victims. He thought the guy was the same height as the women. Bear in mind, they were all tiny. Do you remember said like there was the debate or the discussion about whether he just
Mm.
had a preference for smaller women or whether he had to go towards smaller women to
Hmm.
be more likely to overpower them.
Hmm.
So they did an audio interview with the daughter of Harold Jones. So she didn't know growing up that he had killed girls in Wales. He had hid that
And
from his
like, why
family.
would you tell? I mean, like, to be honest, why would you tell people that?
Yeah,
Like,
of
what? Well,
course.
actually, what would he say though? His background. What would he say? Anyway.
Well, he changed his name. He moved
Hmm.
to a whole
Hmm.
other area. And again, this is pre-internet times, so it's not like anyone's Google searching him, right? And you would never be like, "Oh, I wonder if my dad committed any murders in his hometown." You. So they found out. Again, she didn't know that he had killed anyone in Wales, but during his prison stay, he had absolutely zero treatment and no psychological help or anything, which is just bonkers to me that a 15-year-old
For like
would kill
20
2
years.
girls. He's in prison for 20 years and he doesn't get any. And
Doesn't
then he's
seem
just
right.
released. after saying that he has no desire to lose, he
His
doesn't
will
want to
to
lose
kill
the
her.
desire. All the murders were weekday evenings after 11. So is it possible that he had to do this around family commitments when he was on his own or able to slip out of the house? The criminal profiler said it's likely that that means that he's an older woman, i.e. with a family.
An older
He was,
man.
yeah, an older man. He's very short. He's 5'4". And he often wore a trilby hat, which is exactly what the eyewitness saw the person wearing. You remember the struggle that
Yeah.
someone saw between what they believe was Jack the Stripper and one of the victims. That person was wearing a trilby hat. He was a sheet metal worker in Acton, where the Heron estate is based. They found out that the paints came from this paint spray shop on the Heron estate in Acton, next to the Napier factory, which was abandoned. They worked out the bodies had been stored in this small electrical substation, basically a little shed, and that the paint flecks were coming in from the paint shop next door. And the Napier factory had someone working for them before it shut called H.L. Stevens. And that's the name that Harold Jones used when he came out of prison and moved to England. How he would know that the factory, and that's how he would have known that this factory was abandoned and that the electrical substation was there and that no one checks it and so forth. They can't confirm that Harold Jones worked at this factory previously before it shut down. But he also had a boat hole. He had a little bachelor pad, I don't know, a place he stayed when he was getting stressed so as to not take it out on the family. And this was in Hammersmith, in the middle of the sort of area where the murders were taking place.
Yeah.
One of the victims was last seen talking to a Welsh person and left with a short man. Yeah. So weirdly, Harold Jones wasn't the only one of the original suspects. The team in the documentary also presented evidence they found that pointed to Alan Jackaman, the man who did that was found by this, hang on. Let's skip that all out. He said there was I wish I could read my notes. There was evidence found by Alan Jackaman, who did a cold case review at some point, and he said if he knew of Harold Jones at the time, then Harold Jones would have been the prime suspect. And he said that Harold Jones should have been investigated further. But I guess the police just never put two and two together because he was using a different name at the time. Again, pre-internet, things must have been fucking hard to do.
Oh my God, I can't even imagine. But on Harold Jones, so he was convicted of killing the 8-year-old and the 11-year-old. And I just wonder if, even though he's a man when he comes out, and let's say he did kill the other victims, it may well be that he liked the smaller, like the aspect of child-sized women, like smaller women.
Yeah.
Because they reminded him of the original kills. And then he's got a family, so he's going to have to try and keep it secret.
Yeah. And in London, people are not going to have their kids, even at the time, walking around as freely as rural Wales 20 plus years previously. So again, sex workers are in very vulnerable positions. So they're sort of easier targets, aren't they? Which is just horrifying.
There's
now,
loads of circumstantial evidence there. Loads.
Yeah. Well, without any kind of DNA, that's all you've got, really, isn't it?
And if it's not kept, it's not.
So the investigative team on this documentary, David Wilson and his colleagues, they sent the evidence that they found out about this Harold Jones to the Metropolitan Police. So watch this space, because this documentary it's basically 100 years-ish. In 2021, it was 100 years since the original Welsh murders of Harold Jones, which is kind of what sparked this documentary, that anniversary was coming up. But it'd be fucking awesome if they eventually managed to find the man. I mean, Jack the Stripper is dead. Yeah. Presumably dead at this point.
It would be in their 80s, if not older. I mean, then, yeah.
A small chance they're still alive, but highly likely they're not. But just to get answers, and to get answers to the family, the kids and the families of these two young girls, was the person responsible for their family member also responsible for all these? There's just so many questions. I have questions. I'm not related to anyone,
I have
you know?
questions. Like I really like the criminal profiling aspect of things. What the criminal profiler suggests you'd be looking for. And so I think they said there was like an older man and like all this kind of stuff and
Yeah,
with a family. And I just think it's like so interesting. I
right?
find that whole aspect fascinating.
It makes sense. He had to do it around family
Mm.
commitments, work commitments, and so forth.
Mm.
I've put in fun fact. The crime novel Goodbye Piccadilly, Farewell Leicester Square in 1969, written by Arthur Laburn, is loosely based on this case.
Okay.
The book was adapted for the Alfred Hitchcock movie Frenzy,
Oh, okay.
which is one of my favorites. And I didn't clock that it was linked to this. Um, I've got sources, loads of podcasts, UK Unsolved Crimes, Jack the Stripper, True Crime All the Time Unsolved, Jack the Stripper, Blood Ties Podcast, Jack the Stripper, Mysteries and Histories, that's a great name for a podcast, The Hammersmith Nude Murders, Jack the Stripper, and The Student's Verdict, Jack the Stripper, not a typo. Also, the Ministry of History website had a really good article on it. And of course, the University of Wikipedia for a bunch of other
Absolutely.
sources. Yeah, Jack the Stripper. So who are you thinking?
Oh, do you know what? I was going between Mungo Ireland because it just sounded so like he could be the person. So he's the one that was he the one that died of no. Was he
No.
the one that
He was the one that
died of
killed himself and left that suicide note
yeah,
saying,
yeah. So I thought it could be him. And then also Harold Jones because of the fact that like it just seems like it'd be a really good fit and he'd be a really good fit. He's got previous, everything ties up. The
yeah,
fact that like David Wilson spent time on that one
yeah.
also, and that they would have
But then
spent
what about Freddie
money.
Mills,
Remind me of Freddie Mills
the
again, sorry.
boxer?
I know, but
But
then
maybe he just liked the idea of, maybe he put it out there a bit that he had committed it. But
yeah, but
if
bizarre that he would only admit to one though. Why only one?
no, that was someone else.
Oh,
See, there's
sorry.
so
God,
many.
my
No,
God,
I
there's so
know.
many.
I know. Freddie Mills was the one who
Well, other people said
different
it was him.
and that it was known in the West End that he had committed these murders. And that one kind of makes sense to me in a little bit because we know that the police were in the pocket of a lot of the criminal underworld. So
Mm.
perhaps if they thought uh, Freddie Mills and all of the different crime bosses that he might have been linked to were involved, they might have thought it's in their best interest to not solve this case, you know?
But I also
So
think that he might have been linked to it because like it makes him look cool. It like
yeah,
makes him
it benefits him to
it
have this
benefits him to have the
reputation.
persona. Yeah, well,
Yeah.
exactly.
With the safety
Um,
of knowing that he hasn't actually done it. So there's
yeah,
no way
and
he's
he's not
getting
going to
done
be
for this.
convicted exactly because there's no evidence.
Yeah. So I do hope they review this seriously. It'd be really nice to get answers.
My money's on
I
Harold Johnson now after you.
Jones, yeah, Harold Jones.
Harold Jones, sorry. I don't know who Harold Johnson is. You didn't do it, but
Sorry, not
um,
Harold Johnson. Or is it?
oh,
um,
is there another one?
it's
Oh
just
my
it's a
God.
tough one, isn't it? Because like it's always about resources. And cold cases are tough because there's always new cases. And
Hmm.
this is one where the perpetrator is probably dead
Yeah.
and there's no DNA. It would be a
Hmm.
tough one to solve.
Yeah.
So, but then at the same time, it was so gruesome, so many victims affected so many people who are still alive and fighting
Mm.
for justice. So
Mm.
I hope it gets like, priority in terms of resources.
Do you know what can happen? Like, do we have a cold case division in the Met in the UK? Like, do we have that kind of thing?
I don't know, because there's obviously review committees,
Yeah, of
like the
course. Yeah.
Scotland Yard Serious Crime
Yeah,
Review
yeah.
Group reinvestigated the murders between
Mm.
2006, 2007. I don't know whether there's actual cold case departments. I
Mm.
remember, I think it was Stephen Keogh, former police detective and
Mm.
legend and current legend, current and ongoing legend,
Yeah, we've got his
said,
books. Yep, he's
yeah,
brilliant.
I think it was him that said that, cold cases get passed around and stuff. And,
Mm.
so I
Because
don't know what this,
his book is on like Jack the Ripper, and like if you actually looked at Jack the Ripper now through a modern police lens,
yeah,
what
fascinating.
what what would the outcome have been? What's kind of different? I've
I
started
might reach out
watching.
and ask him what about Jack the Stripper? What would you do?
Yeah, right, exactly. No, that would be really interesting. There's
Mm.
this new program, this new I think it's on Netflix called Department Q. Have you started watching it?
Oh, I was just going to tell you about it. It's so
Yeah.
good and
So
it's
I'm only in
Scottish.
episode, yeah, I'm only in episode 2, but I think it's like Danish, isn't it? But then they've made it in Scotland instead. The author's think surname's Olsen. Um,
I finished it
and
yesterday. It's amazing.
yeah, like I really enjoyed it. And a customer came in the shop and she was asking for the books, and we only had one of them. Like we didn't have the first one, so. But I think it's really interesting how you get there's a cold case department, and I can see why there would be because there's a lot of cold cases that would still link into modern cases, and I think there's a lot to
Yeah.
learn.
And
Um,
also, if these people have committed crimes and not got done for them, presumably they're still carrying on committing other crimes?
yeah, potentially that they're still alive. And the other thing is like for the victims as well, you just think of like the poor mother that passed away and other victims' parents, of like the Moors murderers and like where those bodies were, and Myra Hindley, and just awful.
I mean, I
Um,
can't imagine losing someone close to me in that way. And I
no,
hope
a
I never
child
have
like
to,
that.
or any loved one or anyone I know, apart from obviously Palestine stuff, but I know who perpetrated those crimes. Anyways,
Yep.
but my point is like losing someone to like a homicide and then also not knowing who did it. It's like double fucking whammy, isn't it? So shit.
Not knowing who did it, and then with like the Moors murders is also not having a body.
Yeah.
Like knowing that they're dead, they're gone. But where's your baby? Like where are they buried?
Yeah.
Like that's still your child. But
Hmm.
obviously in this case, they've got the bodies. They know where those women are, but they just don't know who's done it. I wonder
It's
like
just,
what the families think after reviewing the evidence. Has anyone like I know that David
yeah.
Wilson interviewed them, but I wonder what the families what their thoughts are.
Well, Harold Jones's own daughter seemed to think that it was highly likely her dad
Mm.
was involved. I mean,
And I wonder if
that's,
any of them confessed. I wonder if any of them confessed. If you're particularly religious, you
yeah.
you hear of things where people confess in their deathbed to certain things. And I just wonder if any of them did.
Yeah. Or, hopefully if they do if they attract publicity to this case, then people maybe they confess to friends or family or whatever.
Mm,
Loyalties change over time, divorces happen, this, that, and the
mm,
other. So maybe someone knows something who's again still potentially still alive,
mm.
but potentially not for very much longer. So if they
God.
want to solve this case without any DNA evidence, they need to get on it ASAP, right?
Get Colin on it, get Stephen on it.
That's what we need. We need a new committee. Yeah. Um,
DCID along with DCI Colin.
I'll
And
be like in
Steve.
an advisory role because I have no qualifications to solve crimes, but I
Oh my God,
can
I
talk
love
about
it.
them. Do you want a bit of a palate
Palette
cleanser?
cleanser, yes, please. I mean,
All
after
right.
the last 2 episodes, I am 3 episodes. Yeah,
Yeah.
cleanse me.
You'll be pleased to know that my next one is a very old-timey one, which always helps.
Yeah, feels that it's a bit of distance.
Yeah. So this is the next installation of the Inquisition,
Question.
where if you go to links in our bio or go to our website, you get to submit um, your tattoos. We want to see the really good, we want to see the really bad and the really ugly, and we want to see the really silly and stupid ones. Like, for example, I have Super Mario. here on one inside ankle. And he goes with, look how flexy I am, Yoshi. And I like when I walk and it looks like they're running together. So I
Do you
promised I
walk and
would.
like look down at yourself?
Yes, all the time. I'm like,
Is that why you constantly keep banging into things?
yeah, probably.
I just thought you were dyspraxic.
That and my love of the bar. So you can take a picture and submit it through Google Form and just tell us a little bit about it, and then we will have a little chat about it. So this one's super exciting because it's submitted again by the lovely Linda of the brewery market, but it's on behalf of the lady from the Twickenham Club, which is also on Church Street.
I'm excited. Let me see.
I hope with her permission, but I'm not entirely sure. So
it's Linda just randomly taking pictures of people in her pub.
Exactly.
Love your tat. Do you need to get your sister to put her tattoos on?
None of hers are funny though. Do you know what I mean?
I think she regrets a couple of them now.
Oh, 100% she does, but that's not because they're silly. Sorry, I'm just trying to get this open. I should have prepared better, but it's me. It's me. It's me.
We need to go on Dee and see if we could book in some tattoos when you're here in York.
Yeah, yes, please, always. Maybe this will give us some ideas. So
yeah, okay.
I should say that Linda has the most amazing dog called Pepper. And if you know the brewery market, you know Pepper because Pepper's often in the brewery market. So this woman at the Twickenham Club, name unknown, has got a pepper tattoo.
I don't know how I feel about that, Dee. I mean, obviously oh wow, she must really love
Pepper
and the brewery market. Good for her. She obviously like really loves the brewery market and Pepper. I think you have to be really committed to get a tattoo of an animal that's maybe not your animal. I mean, it doesn't count for you, Dee, because you're obviously in South Africa and you got a tattoo of
I didn't get someone else's pets though, but
no,
basically,
but someone else's pet that's a big commitment.
That's a bit of a strange one. This lady got a tattoo of Pepper and all the other dogs she meets that she loves along the street, which is Church Street. So it's a really cute story.
I still don't know how I feel about it, but good for her. She's obviously
it's bizarre.
Knows exactly what she wants to do and she's going for it. I think that I wouldn't do that, but you know.
In her defense,
she's got stories to tell.
Yeah, and in her defense, up and down Church Street, there's a lot of really cute dogs.
I mean, her whole body's going to be covered if she's not careful.
It's not that long a street, but there are some cute dogs. There's a Staffy at the vintage shop. I think her name is Maisie Gray. She's super cute. For a while, there was a three-legged dog. I haven't seen that dog in a while. I hope it moved to better places. But yeah,
did it have an owner, or was it just a three-legged dog that would like parade around Church Street waiting for someone to tattoo it?
No, it would just regularly walk around. So maybe it didn't live on Church Street, but obviously quite noticeable three-legged dog. Yeah, just shopping. There's lots of gift shops on Church Street. So yeah, fantastic. That is an interesting idea for your collection of tattoos. I appreciate.
I'm going for ivies. I want ivies all down my arm. So that's what my next one's going to be, a different ivy.
Yeah, I think that's super cute. And yes, we need to get on it. What should I get?
I don't know. Why don't you ask our viewers to like what you should get next? And by the way, guys, you do realize that Dee will, honestly, if you do a poll, she will get that tattoo. She just do it.
But, probably. All right, I'll do a little poll. So do submit your tattoos for our commentary.
Oh my God, I've just realized what you should get.
What?
Colin Sutton's face.
On my face? No.
On your forehead. Like, you know how people have like slut or dickhead and like, you know.
No. Do you know what I get it? I'd get it on my hand so I could look on it. Imagine if I just had Colin Sutton as a hand tattoo.
I think he would actually stop talking to you, Dee. I think that would be the limit. He'd be very civil when he saw it, but then I think after that,
Yeah.
pull in some
And
favors and made sure that you stayed well away.
um and to be fair, that's too much even for me. So
And you love him.
I love
Dee, I
him.
need more stickers. I've got like your old sticker on my phone, so we need stickers.
They arrived the other day. They're coming to Harrogate. And
Yay!
oh my God, hang on 1 second.
Oh my God, they're so cute.
And I'm going to go 1 step further and show you.
We've got stickers, people. We got stickers. I love that little notepads. They're so cute. Dee, I'm gonna have
So
to put stuff on the website as well, like shop website and Instagram and socials linking the podcast.
yeah,
We can
well,
do all that.
we have got our shop link on a website to get all kinds of merch. So if you want any of these fun things, then go check it out. It's a Redbubble
Awesome.
shop and it's super cool. And yeah, we will probably be stocking up the shop with some criminally good books with some of our merch as well.
Yep,
We
definitely.
have not discussed it, but I'm going to
It's
assume
happening.
that at the very least you'll be able to pick up a free sticker or two. So
Listen,
we'll
when
figure
people
that shit
come
out.
into the shop and if they buy any true crime books, and you give me a stack of your stickers or our stickers now, but with your lovely sister Randa, when she was your co-host, those stickers they were so popular because people would come up to buy a true crime book, and we would say, "Oh, do you listen to any podcasts?" And inevitably, yes, they did, and and like really cool that when we said to people, "Oh, would you like to learn about this podcast?" They're like, "Oh my God, I followed that one already." So lots of people
Yeah.
did.
And
So
now you
then
can be like, it's me.
it's me.
Because I love our new little logo.
I think that they're so cute. I love it so much. I
Mhm.
can't wait to get my hands in a sticker and put it on my phone and say, that's me.
All right. I might post you some early because I was going to bring them to Harrogate, but I think you need them ASAP, don't you? All right. Well, I love you.
I love
I
you.
I love our sexy listeners, and I feel like your love for them is growing.
It is growing. I've met a couple of them, lovely, lovely people that have come into the store already who are just absolutely adorable. So yeah, I'm loving them, but I want to
If
meet
you're
more of them.
listening to this and you are anywhere near York, go to Criminally Good Books and make Isla fall in love with you so she falls in love with our sexy listeners quicker. It takes her longer, but her
To
love is
fall in
so
love,
deep
yeah.
and profound, and it's just unwavering once it's there.
Once it's there, yeah. Once it's there.
All right. Well, we will see you all next week where Isla will be presenting her first case to moi.
Oh my God, I'm so excited, Dee. I
I
hope I
know,
can
I
do it
am too.
justice.
That might be a day for day drinking.
Oh my God, I don't know how you can day drink.
Easily. I
I
just
can
take a
day
nap
drink on a
after.
holiday and I can day drink in Harrogate.
Yeah.
Those are
Well,
the two places.
I'm just gonna want to have like a little drinky poo while you tell me a story, you know?
Okay, cool.
All right. Okay. Love you all.
Love you.
Bye.
Bye. Bye,
Bye.
bye, bye.
Bye. Love you. Bye. I can never remember where the stop button is.
Like this episode? Want more? Come visit me, Isla, at Criminally Good Books in the heart of York. We're an independent bookshop dedicated entirely to crime. From cosy mysteries to gritty thrillers, historical whodunits to juicy true crime. We've got signed editions, special gifts, and plenty of recommendations for your next obsession. We also host a bunch of awesome author events. Can't make it in person? Visit us online at criminallygoodbooks.co.uk.